Hey again! Ooh, another month is past, and that means it's time to cover our third installment on the species of Saorsa. So, who do we get to meet this week? Well, we've already covered the Kara, the dragons, the Pharaohs, and the humans. So that means it's time for the Kaelas to step forward. These small creatures hail from the world of Nocturne, a planet which revolves only twice per orbit, leading to a single long day which lasts an entire year, causing the day side of the planet to grow overly hot and the night side to become frigid cold. This has led to even the plant life to find ways to survive, from forms of hibernation to latching on to animals, or having a mobile leaf system which attaches and leaves behind root systems, moving from one to the next every few hours. The Kaelas themselves evolved from a bioluminescent moss rather than from an animal forebear, and this can be seen in much of their anatomy, appearing at first to look almost vaguely like humanoid fennec foxes. Further inspection shows that their fur to be moss, the four long tendrils that grow from the base of their skulls being vines, and their internal structure closer to what you'd expect from cutting open a tree branch. Natural predators, these small creatures organize themselves in small hunting packs of about a half dozen, each member having a distinctive role in the hunt and being identified as such. Their naming conventions are such that the Kaelas view their role in the hunt as the most important aspect of who they are, and so their names reflect such. The first name they'll refer to themselves as is a title referring to their role. As they grow to be more acquainted with others, they'll begin using the name of the pack they're in, which isn't quite a family name, as Kaelas semi-frequently change packs. In the game itself, this would mean Kaelas would name herself after a mercenary company, or an adventuring party, a military unit, or so on, and would introduce herself as such. The least important part of Kaelas society is the individual, and the individual's names are reserved only for their closest friends and intimate partners, as that's all it should matter to, according to their beliefs. So true is this that most Kaelas have significant issues with trying to grasp the concept of the individual, instead trending towards viewing members as facets of a larger group. Rarely will they so much as say I or me, or other references to themselves as a singular entity, vastly preferring to describe themselves as a member of the group they've attached themselves to. Despite this view of working as a cohesive group unit, the Kaelas still are vastly more individualistic than they give themselves credit for. Individual Kaelas strive to learn as much as they can, then to share that knowledge with the group. This originated as a method of studying prey and relating the tactics to defeat that prey to their pack, though in later years it quickly spread towards other aspects of society as well, from studying magic to studying the nature of the world itself. This has led to an incredible increase in technology, where the Kaelas have blazed through in decades what takes most species centuries or millennia to surpass. Their individualistic learning, but communal sharing, and a high expendability of individuals allows for new ideas to overcome old ones at a rapid pace. The expendability of the Kaela is of a particular note. Functionally, they're immortal. They don't age, there's no cellular degradation, and for all intents and purposes, a given Kaela should be able to live forever, sans, disease or injury. This is not the case by a long shot, however, due in large part to serotonin and adrenaline addiction. As Kaela grow older, they become more resistant to the chemical effects of these, requiring greater and greater risks to be taken. Over time, the Kaela grow progressively more suicidal in their tendencies. They don't have any desire to die by any means, but they seek larger prey, bigger mountains to climb, greater challenges, perpetually aiming for greater dangers to face, until eventually, and inevitably, they bite off more than they can chew, and then the only biting they do is biting the dust. Due to this, however, the Kaela are not bound by the normal limitations of self-preservation that many species possess. If it leads to glory, more knowledge, or an adrenaline high, then the Kaela will often put themselves into grave peril without so much as a second thought on the matter. Paired with their lust for knowledge and a fundamental affinity for chaos magic, this has led to the study of the natural and supernatural world in terms of a religion of science. The multi-tiered pantheons of the Kaela exist as personifications of the fundamental building blocks of the world. Iron, calcium, helium, all of these elements are ruled over by a deity, as are all the others. Stronger, more powerful deities are those which control reality at a more fundamental level. Subatomic gods rule over electrons, neutrons, protons, are below the pantheon of quarks. And at the very base level, the most powerful Kaela deity of all lay Quantalia, goddess of quantum fluctuation. She is revered as the controller of all of reality. Her whims dictate how everything in the universe behaves based upon random chance. This has led to the worship of this concept of a personification of luck and chance being built into the core fundamentals of Kaela society. The temples of Kaela are enormous things, part house of worship, part casino, and part particle accelerator. These temples are filled with scientific theories on the workings of magic, placed upon the wall as Deadpools, bets placed upon which can be disproven in which order, and the worshippers are more than willing to devote their lives to discover the truth of reality, and to gamble constantly. In fact, gambling is seen as a pure form of worship, whether it's drawing of cards, rolling of dice, or guessing at which particles will be formed in a mana particle collision within the magically charged particle accelerators. It's all the same to the Kaela. Each is a representation of Quantalia's will. To cheat at gambling is a crime of the highest order, as it represents an individual insulting the most powerful of all of their deities. Whether it's because of their goddess, or inversely, their views of Quantalia stemmed from this fact, the Kaela are naturally very lucky, and not just by natural standards, but rather their capacity to influence outcomes of seemingly random chance by sheer force of will is uncanny. That affinity for chaos magic is quite part of this. In fact, A Kayla who devotes herself wholly and fully to concentrating upon a particular outcome can forcibly choose which reality she enters into, thereby essentially selecting the desired outcome. Random chance to the Kayla is not random at all, despite what their common religion may suggest to outsiders. Rather, the end result is the final step in a long line of small events which add up together to form the whole, and each step along the way can be adjusted ever so slightly to lead to the desired outcome. This is how they believe Quantalia is able to alter reality upon her whim, and so too is it how they are able to shift reality themselves. A prayer or a tweak of their own can shift the outcomes much later on down the line, which grants them a great deal of additional control over seemingly random events. And it's because of such that altering the roll of the dice by their desires isn't considered to be cheating. It's a contest of who makes the most tiny changes and who the goddess favors most. As other species tend to not be capable of altering the odds in this manner, it's typically recommended to never gamble against the Kaela, as you'll almost invariably lose when the dice just seem to land in their favor with frightening consistency. To return to the physical form of the Kaela, the entire species is genetically almost identical. There's very little variation in appearance, height, weight, and so on. Magical and natural diseases have vastly accelerated effects, spreading like wildfire through the population, though their natural resilience and capacity to heal largely compensates for such. Part of the issue of this lack of genetic diversity is that all Kaela are hermaphroditic in nature, possessing only a single sex within their species. The concept of males and females in other species is a rather alien one, and one in which they often fail to understand, leading to confusion at times. Further adding to this confusion among other species is that the Kaela have very limited capacity to alter their vocal intonations, and therefore perpetually sound as though they're excited children, regardless of their actual feelings on a matter or their age. The positioning of their large ears and tails matched with the way their bioluminescent markings on their fur shifts hue to match their mood must be taken into account for context of what they're saying, as the tone of their voices won't change. That their fur's coloration doesn't follow the standard patterns for what most other cultures attribute to specific emotions also tends to lead to confusion when dealing with other species, and it can take some time to realize that what an individual Kaela sounds like she's saying and what she actually means are often two very distinctively different things. As predators, the Kaela possess many physical features which allow for them to hunt. Most notable of such is the venom their fangs can inject in a bite, which amplifies the effect of other toxins already present, even to the point of poisoning a creature with its own natural toxins, though their venom has no negative effects upon its own. Their small stature and paw-like hands and feet don't allow for fine manipulation as other species see such, but instead they handle objects in a different manner. The large three-pronged tail of the Kaela is used to lift heavy objects in broad motions, or to fling their small frames great distances. Their paws are used more for roughly adjusting an object's rotation, such as opening a book or turning over a ball. They're headvines and in very fine tendrils, which can perform the most fine and delicate emotions, but lack for raw strength. As such, the Kaela use different specialized tools for each action. With everything about the Kaela being combined, it becomes quite clear that the Kaela, though vicious, albeit small predators, are also adrenaline junkies and seekers of scientific knowledge. To the Kaela, the question is virtually never, should I? But how can I? Plowing ahead, often regardless of the potential consequences to herself. Friendly, energetic, and exceptionally inquisitive, the Kaela are prime comrades to have by your side. Though the older they get, the more you'll have to watch over them to make sure they don't do anything too rash. And that brings us to our next species, the Cubi. Fae, succubi, incubi, demons, shoulder devils. The Cubi have been known across many worlds by many names, few of which properly portray this diminutive race. Standing at barely over a foot in height, the Cubi look vaguely like humans, though their forms are stretched out and elongated in terms of their proportions, appearing very lanky and lithe. What at first appears to be a blackened skin is revealed to be brightly lit and colorful under ultraviolet light, with exotic patterns and markings which most other species are unable to see otherwise. Long tails, jagged horns, and moth-like wings further note that this species truly isn't human, if the other evidence didn't give such away already. With retractable fins upon their tails and the ability to breathe both air and water, the Cubi are at home in the air and freshwater rivers, able to dart quickly about with exceptional precision and speed. Their horns have a near-zero resistance to etheric energy, allowing them to easily channel spells through such, or to discharge a violent magical burst when using such as a weapon. When it comes to the Cubi as a cultural entity, the fact that so many of the myths based upon them are negative in nature kinda tends to show. Though friendly and caring, the Cubi possess no real concept of personal space, personal property, or lethargy for that matter. The concept that anyone would not do what they desired is an alien idea to them. They act largely upon impulse, with little to no regard for those around them. As has been put in a rather succinct description of them, the Cubi are not so much evil as they are morally challenged. They don't mean to cause problems, it's just kind of their natural inclination to get in the way. Despite such, the Cubi are excessively social creatures, having a nearly physical need to be nearby other people at all times. Even the most antisocial of Cubi would be considered extremely outgoing by most any other species standards. A large part of this is due to the fact that the Cubi are a symbiotic species and bond with what is essentially a larger host creature for mutual protection and social company. Attaching themselves to larger creatures in this way helps to keep the tiny Cubi relatively safe, though their incessant chatter and endless commentary can wear thin the patience of many such bonded creatures. The excesses of the Cubi are also quite well known. These small creatures throw themselves fully into anything they do. The mixture of business and pleasure is pretty much universal in that their desires become their goals in life, and hobbies and work become practically the same thing. They treat pretty much everything in life as a professional sport, a game to be played, but they play to win because winning is the fun part. This overarching mindset has a darker side as well, however. If an individual cubi isn't interested in something, that something may as well not exist to her. It's an all or nothing approach to life in general, and it's rare for the cubi to take into consideration collateral damage that may occur on the way to our goals. Such is the extent of this that cubi mages and scientists are often considered a pox upon the society they integrate themselves into, as, well, their methodology rarely considers the potential harm they may cause. True, a cubi will almost guaranteed discover a cure to a plague in record time, but probably not without having subjected large portions of the population to that very plague, just to see how it works and how it spreads. And such is the nature of the cubi. They're often viewed as providing great benefit to those they're friends with, though at great cost. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending upon whose view it is, the cubi are exceptionally short-lived, leading bright and intense lives, though the brightest flame burns out the fastest. Few cubi live to be more than 3 to 5 years old, tracking their age in seasons rather than years. For the cubi themselves, their age is determined by how many seasons they've seen. The first quarter year of their life, their brains haven't developed enough to remember such, so they don't count it among their age. Birth to the cubi begins at about 3 months old in their minds due to this. An adult has seen each season once, excluding the first, which you won't remember. So a cubi who says she's 4 seasons old, and therefore an adult, is in fact closer to 5 seasons old, or about 15 months. Though small and short-lived, when it comes to battle, the cubi are hardly incapable. Powerful mages and excessively agile in flight, these tiny creatures excel at weaving through battle lines, and in fact quite prefer melee combat, able to strike foes from many different directions in rapid succession. As with most everything else the cubi do, the desire to hyper-specialize is ever present. Once a cubi sets her mind upon learning a particular method of combat, she'll go all in, learning everything she can to the most intimate levels of detail. This preference for specialization tends to mean that hybrid classes and combat styles are rarely favored by the cubi. Their capacity to learn is far beyond the imaginings of most other species, yet they focus solely upon a single concept at a time, mastering a skill in a fraction of the time it would take other species, and then growing quickly bored of it and moving on to another to master in quick succession. Their attention spans are short, but their dedication absolute in the interim. The specific nature of the cubi's symbiosis is also rather absolute in nature. Picking a singular individual, the cubi attaches herself to them socially and more or less physically as well. It's quite common for a cubi to sit upon her partner's shoulder, or to rest within a pocket, peeking out over the rim to watch the outside world go by. When bonded in this manner, the cubi tends to be more effective at all she does, so long as she's in the direct presence of her other half. In turn, she helps and lends aid to her symbiotic partner, eagerly doing all she can to help them towards their own goals, in her own way. usually not in the way that would be desired or obvious. Cubi are relentless in their desire to help the one that they're bonded to, though the help that's offered is typically in need of having finger quotes around such. Overall, the Cubi are a highly passionate and intense species who gets along with other species immensely well. While this may not be reciprocated in kind, the continually upbeat outlook on life and seemingly unending enthusiasm which radiates from the tiny creatures is hard to deny the appeal of. For those who can deny such, the cold-hearted ruthlessness with which the Cubi follow their interests tends to work just as well. And with that, we've covered both the Kaela and the Cubi. Tune in next month to learn about the last two species of Saorsa. Oh, I guess I'm done. Well then, with that, I'm out. I'll see you next time.